Exactly. And this is one of those deciding series here. So winner of this best of 5 will have their spot in, and we're going on into game number 1 here now.
Indeed, game number 1 coming up here with Highview. It is going to be the Rus against the HRE between Anotand and ZertoN. Seed number 4 and seed number 5, 2 candidates to make it to the main event of the Elite Classic. Only one of them will be able to make it today. We'll have to see which of these 2 players will get there as we jump into game number 1.
Coming on into game number 1, it is Anotand on this eastern side. It's the Rus, as we mentioned, and he's doing the heavier build onto the hunting cabin to not idle his TC for that first scout. And on the other side, the western side, it's ZertoN on the HRE, and we can see what type of spawn location he's got for that chapel.
Yeah, looking at possible chapel spots, it's the usual decision that you have to make between a berry plus forest versus a gold plus forest type of a layout. As Vodka is showing us, one of the options that you can go for is place it in between the gold and the wood. Although the more likely option is to place it in between the berries and the wood. Problem with that is that it's on the front, and it's going to make it much more problematic to build farms around in the intermediate part of the game. So you might end up placing it in between the gold and the wood just to make sure it's as secure as possible.
Yeah, I think the golden wood is the safer spot because nothing's worse than placing a chapel and then getting it denied and you're like, I should have built it on the backside. So that's where I think maybe backside safer option. The key in this early game, it's going to be all about this bounty. How much bounty will Anotand be able to pick up for himself?
Well, he made 3 scouts, so 80 bounty should be pretty accomplishable. We'll have to keep an eye out on that.
Yes, we will. Able to pick up the first set of deer, able to snag over that wolf, and if my calculations serve me correct, that is above 80 bounty, so congratulations for Anotand being a better bounty gatherer than Marine Lord.
Yeah, I guess in Dark Age we have to put a bit of a disclaimer over here in case someone is watching this and he's just listening and saying, these casters are talking about 80 bounty, what are they talking about? All I can say to you is search Marine Lord 80 bounty and you will understand. Or I should say 80 bounty, but I don't have a French accent like Marine Lord does.
No, not at all. And ZertoN having a good little sheep haul, which is very, very important as the HRE. And one thing I find with the HRE, especially against Rus, is you have this predicament of, do I counter out the bounty or do I get sheep? It's kind of this either or scenario, and sometimes you have to make a little bit of a sacrifice, and looks like his sacrifice was maybe a little bit of that bounty, as Anotand did secure that far side deer camp.
Yeah, especially on this map, it just gets more frustrating for the HRE as well, because not only do you have those deer patches, as you mentioned, it's also the fact that Highview does have a lot of wolves to work with, much more than other maps do. So this is one of those maps where the Rus can really get a lot of bounty for themselves. And looks like Anotand is choosing a somewhat surprising spot for that Kremlin, all the way at the back of his base, but not right on the gold mine.
It might not make like much sense, but it still hits that wood line and still protects the gold for the long term. So the question's going to be, is it just going to be, you know, some night play into castle? Is that why he's protecting the gold rather than kind of protecting that front side? Or is it just kind of that's what he thought was the best location spot? Chapel going in as expected on that backside on the wood line. Nice, safe, and secure. House going in on the opposite side, making sure it's not in that range of the chapel once it's finished.
Indeed, you just want to make sure that you have enough space around that chapel, because that's going to be the primary place where you farm at. And on the other side, looks like Anotand is going to play around stone here. He's moving out towards the stone. Still somewhat puzzling to see that Kremlin being dropped at the back, although it's going to somewhat protect the gold mine. But frankly, yeah, let's take a look at the forest though. I think it's one of those Kremlin placements where it's not really protecting the gold, but it's still close enough for the wood such that the lumber camp is affected. Yeah, it's probably one of those calls.
He doesn't have a lumber camp yet.
Well, but when he does, it's going to be affected by the Gremlin.
Yes, it should be. He should just build it on that backside over there. We'll see in just a second. But he is on the stone pretty heavy in the second TC placement. I'm wondering if that lumber camp is inside the Kremlin now.
ZertoN did see the stone miners. He knows fully well that there's a second TC coming. And looking at his resources, he's likely on course for a fast castle here, which makes me somewhat concerned for Anotand's position. If you play into the 2 TCs here, if you allow the HRE to get to Castle Age straight away, they will just secure the majority of the relics, and that gets alarming for the Rus, as we do have apparently a couple of frames being dropped here and there.
Yeah, a little bit of a lag delay, but we can at least still see what is going on. We can still see the meat of the information that is out and about. And one question for me is, oh, that's why I was about to say, how did ZertoN get down a Vil? But it's because he went with that second scout. We're just doing a little bit of the catch up here. As you know, everyone who knows who's encountered some of this knows that sometimes the pause and replay will fix this on up.
Indeed, it's just a safety measure, quote-unquote, but we should be good to go in a matter of seconds. We're just making sure that you will have a completely lag-free experience. But yeah, as you mentioned, here with the HRE, you play 2 scouts, you have to sacrifice a villager being produced for that, which is definitely a bit of an annoyance. But then again, especially on a map that has so many of these stealth forests, you just need that vision so desperately.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of subs coming in during this delay, so appreciate that. And we are back in action and good to go.
ZertoN, it's a nice eco balance for a fast castle. He's going to have a couple of spears as well, which is something that's kind of just popped out as a kind of a respect being paid to the Rus being able to put out some knights and harass you. But Anotand has no desire to do that. Anotand is just going for a second TC straight away. Let's see where he places that. He's just now going for a range. I actually wonder if he's going to place it on the hunt. Wait a second, look at that spot. Just traveling through the map, going all the way to the north to secure the hunt and the boar.
We talked about Anotand and 3DB being the ones to do some odd stuff, maybe some greedy stuff, things you don't expect. And I think this is one of those, as ZertoN probably saw the stone and he's like, all right, where's that secondary TC going to be? It's going to be on those deer, right? And no, it's going to be all the way to the north on the boar and other deer, which he actually will scout out here in just a second.
Yeah, he's looking for that second TC. He saw the stone miners. He knows fully well that there is going to be a second TC. Question is where. He's just now spotting it. Has to be cautious not to get the scout killed by the TC, but looks like he gets away in time. Now we'll know about the second TC. Alarming thing for Anotand here, though, is that ZertoN is going up to Castle Age untouched, and he's going to have a relatively easy time picking up some of these relics out there.
Yeah, and not only that, he's going to be castle. He's going to have knights for himself that are going to be stronger, that can easily start raiding that very vulnerable far out location we just saw. Although Anotand moving up with his what, 2 archers and a couple militia?
Yeah, the militia, frankly, they could be annoying over here if they can harass the prelates moving out for those relics, because all ZertoN has to secure those prelates with is just a couple of spears. Anotand is also focusing on archers, but obviously he's going to have to start working his way towards Castle Age here ASAP, because he needs to start picking up those relics. Otherwise, ZertoN's going to be sitting on 4 or 5 in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I love this. So he is going out to wall these on up. Needs that archer to get there a little bit quicker, as those spears just constantly pushing those away. Has spotted out another one of these prelates, but look at the militia delaying up the regnants, and a perfect timing dive here. Remember, Anotand does not care about these militia's lives, as they will end up dying eventually anyways. And this has now allowed a couple of these prelates to be very vulnerable out in the middle of nowhere and not make progress on bringing back those relics.
Yeah, this is good value for Anotand here. He's doing a great job when it comes to harassing these prelates. He's going to get a pick down south with the archer. The militia in the middle might get a second one as well. It's going to be tight. And yeah, prelate goes down. ZertoN, despite that castle age advantage, he only has one relic to work with. And Anotand has been using the militia and the archers very well to slow down the relic collection. Now he's got some knights coming, and he's also slowly banking up resources to start his advance towards castle age.
Yeah, that's exactly what I expect. Would love to see him be able to wall in these relics, the ones that haven't been grabbed by ZertoN yet. But so far, we'll just kind of be happy about taking down a few of the prelates already and delaying the relics from being in.
Yeah, first horseman now out for ZertoN. We'll get a pick on that archer. And as the militia disappear, ZertoN is going to have a window to possibly pick these relics up at. But still, knights are now coming out from Anotand. He's slowly building up a villager lead. I feel like if he plays into the semi-fast castle approach, kind of, dare I say, even cancels those 3 knights that he has queued up, he could possibly secure the majority of the relics here. He rushes castle with the abbey, and he's going to have the warrior monks to really yoink these relics with. I would love to see him cancel some of those knights to just expedite his progress towards castle age.
That being said, ZertoN's not investing in military to protect these prelates. He's like, all right, I'm just going to send out more prelates. And Anotand's like, appreciate it. Keep on offering this. I'm just like a prelate assassin over here, as I think this is now the 4th or 5th prelate that has moved out that is just going to immediately lose his life before getting to where he needs to.
It's painful, right? It's just so painful right now for ZertoN. He needs these relics a lot more than Anotand does. Anotand is more than happy just chilling and building that villager lead. And as long as ZertoN cannot get those relics in, this is really good value for Anotand.
Ooh, a couple of those knights getting closer to being picked up. Again, though, that prelate about to pick up that relic, and let's see if Anotand's going to be able to spot it out. Wololo coming in. Oh! Able to escape with his life, but I bet he'll try to circle back around, pick it on up. But another prelate going down on the top side and still delaying ZertoN from getting the Exodia power unlocked of HRE of what they know and love to do.
Anotand is doing a beautiful job here denying those relics. ZertoN is slowly picking them up though, so clock is ticking for Anotand. His eco is a little unbalanced over here, floating a lot of food, doesn't really have the gold to get up to castle age with. But once he's up to castle, he can start sending out the warrior monks and still possibly secure the majority of the relics.
Ooh, but he's going up with the high trade house, going for more of that immediate gold income after castle age hits, bringing that knight back. And good little micro here, even though he loses the knight, to get extra damage down on the knights from the other side. And ZertoN, that's all he's been making, and he really doesn't have a lot to show for himself for Castle Age.
No, not much. He's secured 2 relics, but he's up to Castle Age for 3-4 minutes, so this is as good as it gets for Anotand. He's been denying those relics for a long time. ZertoN, though, gets the pick on the knight and disengages from the militia just to make sure they expire. And it looks like Castle Age will be in with the high trade house for Anotand. We'll have to take a look. Should be a pretty good spot. It's in between 2 forests, likely 220 or so. What's your guess? Make a guess.
We'll go 196. Knight circling back around on the gold. Anotand has to be worried about it. He pulls off of it. Ooh, 151. Not quite as much as I would have expected. A little bit high on my guess. And Anotand, though, able to secure up this eco without too much damage so far.
Yeah, that's a 150 gold per minute as ZertoN is bringing in the 3rd relic. But now crossbows are coming out for Anotand. And let's not underestimate the power of that 2nd town center that has been working for Anotand. Even though this knight has been doing work around it, apparently, there is still a board to be worked with. And it looks like... What is that to the far left? Probably just some palisades trying to deny the relics. We do have the knights clashing over here around the high trade house. Gotta be cautious with so many villagers nearby. But looks like now ZertoN's knights are starting to pay for themselves.
Yeah, definitely starting to pay off, making that second TC pay off a little bit less. Loses out a few of those. Crossbows come out. High trade house has been secured, and military numbers still in the single digits, but all on the quality side. Knights for ZertoN headed towards Anotand's secondary TC again, diving in on that. We saw it beforehand, did not have the Vills here to be able to secure up. So what's he do? He walls themselves in, uses the stealth forest. Oh. Like we said, these cheeky things from some of these 3D players you don't think about and do, and just able to keep those Vills alive, able to take some decent Knight trades, as we've seen him slowly keep these Knights alive like he's playing French, and come back in for just a little bit of extra charge damage after. And doing exactly that yet again. Just trading back and forth, back and forth. It has just been nights and nights and nights on both of these sides. Anotand not able to get the crossbow mass he needs up to actually be effective against Knights.
It's starting to get alarming for him. He's up by 13 villas only, despite having that second TC for a while. He has lost 7 villagers as compared to just 1 on the other side. And ZertoN managed to secure the majority of the relics. He's up to 4 now, or he will be up to 4 in a matter of moments. With that passive gold income, with the efficient economy of the HRE, ZertoN will start looking towards that Imperial Age with the pass of Swabia, and once that becomes a reality, it's gonna be very challenging for Anotand to make anything happen. In fact, his villager lead will disappear in a matter of moments.
Yeah, the question is will he end up punishing the Swabia if ZertoN does end up going for it with that just timing attack that we always see from players when they hear Imperial Age come out? He's on the prowl for that next relic, and that's the 5th relic, not the 4th that ZertoN's trying to secure right there. So 5 relic regnants is something not to be joked around about.
And ZertoN is piling up stone over here. He's getting close to a keep, and there's going to be a good chance to get that relic into the keep. Beautiful raid with the Knights here, that high trade house just being so exposed. And this just keeps contributing to the reason why Anotand only has a 10 villager lead. Keeps losing villagers on these extremities.
Yes, like the TC in the north seemed like such a cool idea, but it got scouted out and just didn't end up paying off. ZertoN taking this fight in the middle, and I think after this fight, this guarantees him Swabia. He feels really, really good about this one, even though he's going to lose some of these Knights out. He's killed out a lot of Anotands, has a few more here to help, and this should force Anotand back a little bit, which allows ZertoN next relic secured and Swabia after that.
Yeah, you still need to be cautious here if you're ZertoN, because now Anotand's crossbows are arriving. That could swing this battle in the favor of Anotand's. But of course, there's the defensive tower and the second tower as well on the wood line, making it next to impossible for Anotand to punish this at all.
Yeah, and it's just going to continue to progress further and further like that, with ZertoN walling up the western side, giving himself a lot of room behind his base, giving himself a sacred site to give him more gold if he goes and secures that, although gold might not be the main thing on his mind with 5 relics already in.
Indeed, 5 relics in for him. He's going up to Imperial with the Palace of Swabia. And this is why that villager lead for Anotand is virtually irrelevant. Until ZertoN only had 2 relics, this was fine for Anotand, because if he can deny those relics, if he can pick up a couple for himself, he's gonna be competitive. But now it's 5 relics, so all he could have hoped for is that he can turn that villager lead that he had in Feudal Age into army, but that never really became a thing. He doesn't have a terrifying army right now, and he's moving out with what probably will be a keep somewhere, maybe on this double gold pile.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a little bit of a leg up for himself, but ZertoN walling in more of his eco, has another gold vein behind it, has deer behind it, has everything he needs, and this keep isn't really going to deny anything for him. And he really needs trebs is what he needs. He needs to start getting on top of the eco of ZertoN.
Yeah, he's going to drop a very aggressive keep over here as ZertoN reaches Imperial.
Woodline.
Yeah, now, ZertoN doesn't have a terrifying army himself, but he's going to have bombard towers. And more importantly, he could get 1 or 2 bombards out himself to take down this castle quickly.
Yeah, maybe his idea, though, is deny the wood line. As ZertoN, this is his main wood line. He's going to have to go further to the east, much more exposed, or all the way on the backside and the south side. And once this goes up, not going to be a delightful sight.
For sure, and you look at the stone count for Anotand, he's ready to drop a second one. At this point, he's just castle rushing, frankly. And honestly, it's not even about getting this castle up specifically. It's gonna be about getting the second one up in the heart of the opponent's eco, or at least that's the plan for Anotand.
Yep, starting to deny at least some of those vills on the stone of ZertoN, so no more of these cannon emplacement upgrades coming in for the time being until he repositions to the other stone. Some more pickups on the reinforcing units by ZertoN, so really solid job there. And Anotand just going for some back berries as he needs some food for himself, it seems like, and doesn't have a great keep location, although denying the wood seemed like it was going to be his game plan for a bit.
It's gonna be impossible to deny that, though. There is just so much wood to work with on this map for his opponent. And yeah, Anotand realizes that there is no way back into this one, will tap out, and ZertoN secures game number 1.
Game number 1, and it kind of looked like it was on ZertoN's side that whole entire time. It just, the TC timing was just a little too late. It didn't really have that payoff. It got pressured down a little bit. Anotand took some damage, and ZertoN just very, very clinical HRE play.
Indeed, ZertoN didn't do anything unique or anything special. He just played HRE as it is supposed to be played. On the other side, Anotand went with this double TC approach of the Rus. Didn't seem to work out that well. It started right, but then by the time he got to Castle Age, he didn't really have the army. Well, even when he got to Castle Age, he simply didn't have the standing army to keep denying those relics. And ultimately, ZertoN was able to secure the 5 relics that he needed and wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you get 5 relics with Regnants, it is pretty hard to end up losing the game and getting taken sacred site. No more reinforcing units going to be able to come in easy and help each other out.
Yeah, he's just now realizing that the walls are complete. It's gonna be difficult for the Sipahi to engage. And when you look at the archer numbers, that's dead even. The Sipahi are the game changers in the favor of ZertoN. He can use the archers to snipe down the spears and then engage with the Sipahi. But as long as these walls are intact, the Sipahi will be a non-factor. So best thing he can do, and best thing that he will have to do, is try to loop around, or possibly try to burn his way through these palisades.
Yeah, this is at least giving Anotand the delay to capture the sacred site, secure the sacred site, and if they continue the fight on the sacred site like we saw earlier, it will end up being favorable for Anotand, because then he's at least getting some gold income in now. But oof, numbers are climbing and starting to look scary on either side. It's going to be all about the micro in these fights. It's Spear Archer versus Sipahi Archer. Main clash going in. A little bit of a brace comes through. Spears just need to make sure they stay in a somewhat safe location, or else the Sipahi get to reign free on the Archer mass on the other side.
The Matter is gone again. ZertoN cannot afford to take this engagement without the Matter supporting. He's doing his best to snipe down the spears, but you see, now the archers with the Tower of Victory, against archers not being buffed by the Matter, the Ottomans just have to flee.
Yeah, and so much easier for Anotand's units to get reinforced to help each other on out, and Anotand utilizing this win to secure up another sacred site. Although those Sipahi can run towards that. If Anotand sees that, he knows that the other military mass in the center a little bit weaker and not fully up and online as they should be.
Yeah, Matter now out for ZertoN. He's also piling up resources for Castle Age possibly, but the walls are once again complete. And it's gonna get more and more difficult for ZertoN to do any damage here in the middle. Anotand is solidifying his position, although he might lose the Scholar here if he's not cautious. Spearmen respond quickly though. Scholar should stay alive.
Yeah, ZertoN is pushing in while Anotand moved out to build up these walls, so needs to regroup with the rest of his military force as the numbers are still dead even up at the top. And main clash about to go in, about to start happening here now.
Yeah, looks like a bit of a stutter once again coming in here. Frame's not liking us today. Things are stabilizing as we do have this Clash Meteor in here to support. No Spearman in front though, and this is a great engagement for ZertoN. Also picks off most of the spears before the Sipahi charge, and this will force Anotand all the way back towards that gold mine.
Absolutely. Anotand did not have a lot of his mass there, as we just saw 6 spearmen come out from the stealth force on the backside. Couple more spears over there as well. And not really being the mass he needs, as well as having villagers on the wood line that were getting focused in on Sipahi. So great fight by ZertoN overall there, although he is now starting to fall back.
Yeah, he needs to just find an opportunity to regroup. Wasn't able to secure either of those sacred sites for himself, but at least he managed to get a couple of villager picks. He has a steady villager lead of 6, but that's not enough to compensate for the sacred sites. And now Anotand is piling up resources for Castle Age.
Yeah, he easily is able to drop Castle Age. The gold income in the bank from these sacred sites is nuts. It just is absolutely helps Delhi unlock so efficiently. And Anotand needs to watch out, though, for that front wood line that ZertoN's about to dive yet again. Another village getting picked off, and maybe a few more after that. Circle around from the Vills. Sipahi, after trying to pick some of the Vills, go back around for those archers on the backside. And Anotand going up to Castle while an army is knocking on his front doorstep. So needs to kite this back so well. Really needs to be able to stay alive from this push and not take too much damage, as he's just kiting back further and further and further.
He's got no spearmen though. Not a single spearman to deal with those Sipahi. And this is exactly the window that ZertoN needed. His opponent is rushing. Oh no! No way, man. He's going to spot the House of Learning. The landmark goes up, but it's going to come at the tremendous cost of villagers.
Not only that, he's dropping Castle Age behind this. So yes, Anotand reaches Castle, very happy for himself, but the Imperial Army is on its way. It should finish up soon, and ZertoN still has a huge force here, and Anotand's going back for those deer to then just get taken more and more villager picks, more and more losses of life.
Oh man, and don't forget, Anotand cannot upgrade his archers quickly here. It's going to take so much time for him to upgrade those. Whereas for ZertoN, he's going to have Castle Age. He's going to start popping out expensive units on that military school. Has to be cautious not to lose the Meteor here, but villagers once again have to flee for their lives. And you see Anotand is just capped on food. He doesn't have food to work with.
Attempted Wololo coming in. Anotand down to single-digit military. This is not what you would expect from him, but it wasn't because of him. It's just because of these efficient fights that ZertoN was able to take over and over and over again, taking down a Scholar. And Anotand, he throws it in. He realizes he has taken too much damage and not able to get the dub there.
It's the timing attack coming in. Anotand is banking up resources for Castle Age. He just spent a ton of resources on that landmark, and this was the exact window that ZertoN needed. He spent all of his resources on the army, and it showed in the army department. If you look at the army graph, what you will see is that at the 17-18 minute mark, ZertoN probably has a substantially larger army and just uses that for perfect timing attack.
Yeah, exactly. You just see Anotand's go straight downhill, took a couple bad fights. ZertoN remassed back up and utilized that for the victory, utilized that for the snowball to just allow himself to do too much damage that Anotand knew how to come back from.
And now it's a 2-0 lead here for ZertoN. Anotand still has both of his home maps available in TM. We're jumping into game number 3 here. Indeed, here we go. It is the brand new map here in the Elite Classic. Not really making its debut. We have seen it being played today already, but it is the first time we see it in this set. It is going to be regions spawning in on the northern side. It's Anotand with the color blue, and down south, ZertoN will be with the French using the color green.
Yeah, and we're not seeing any crazy deer opening for the French this time, as I think we've seen it every single game today so far. It's just sticking on the sheep early on for ZertoN here now. And I guess even though we saw the map before, it's always nice to talk a little bit more about it, as some of the viewers might not have been here earlier. So as you can see just by the little mini map outline, a lot of rich, big resource nodes in the middle. It's a lot about mid-map control, but not all about mid-map control, as those are just kind of the gold and stone resource nodes. On either side, you see deer as well as berries. So a little bit of kind of split map control of what your focus is. But yeah, that's where, at least with these civilizations, not any that are super big berry lovers, although you wouldn't complain about, long-term safe food eco taking the berries, you wouldn't expect to see them make any sort of massive vital push out for that eastern flank. I would expect more to be about this mid-map control and more about these central resources, especially with these two.
For sure. Like, one of the things that you have to take a look at here is that you have a lot more safe starting gold for the players compared to a map like, per se, Dry Arabia. You only have 2 small gold mines to work with. So even in that middle part of the game, mid-late Castle Age, you will have to start moving out towards those central gold mines. And that's where the English network of castles could start coming in very handy. It's going to allow you to secure that position, and once you have it secured, it's going to be very difficult for any civ to push it.
Absolutely. 4 Vills getting pulled for ZertoN, School of Cavalry being dropped. And, I wouldn't expect to see any sort of Chamber of Commerce, especially with the trade posts you see on this map. Or not.
Would be shocking, to say the least, to see the Chamber of Commerce over here. Indeed, School of Cavalry, as anticipated. One thing we haven't mentioned yet is that this is an asymmetrical map, which means that you have a bunch of hunt on the western side, and on the eastern side, you will have most of the berries. So, once again, depending on your civilization, depends which side you prioritize. You don't have any of those berry civilizations, the Abbasids, the Delhi out here. So, it's kind of, I would say, almost irrelevant for someone like Anotand. But for someone like ZertoN, it's actually an interesting consideration to take. French is just such a food-reliant civilization. If you have map control, you could have a lot of food from the hunt and the berries.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is English, they have that very immobile army, but if they start massing it up, it's very hard to deal with in a group together. French going to utilize their cavalry to try to not allow that army to stay together, start to poke and prod at resources. But, that is where you can see English play this 2 very, very different ways.
All right, Eric's already down here for Anotand. It's going to start popping out a couple of spears. And I guess the first question to answer will be whether either of these players wants to play around the second TC. There are no signs of that so far from either side, so we could just see that kind of poking and prodding type of an approach here in Feudal Age, trying to get some damage done, especially if you're the French player, whereas as the English, you're just trying to avoid getting your villagers picked by those knights, slowly building up that force of longbows and spears until you're ready to move out.
Yeah, some proactive walls being dropped by Anotand in between the wood lines will not allow those French knights to, get into some vulnerable eco. And housed is Anotand, has to build that house with like 8 villagers and immediately has two units pop on out. So that definitely delays him up just a little bit. Another defensive wall all the way on the backside. So Anotand fully protecting up the backside of his eco, which will allow him to mass up and focus more on the front side.
Yeah, the first knight out here will be accompanied by a scout from ZertoN. So critical to give that extra line of sight for these knights here. They by themselves are so limited when it comes to vision. You need that scout to accompany them and help seek out those targets.
Yep, ZertoN does have 2 knights out already. Anotand already has a few longbows, a few spears as well. So it has a little bit of a line of defense and just should continue to try to mass up those units more and more together.
Yeah, so far, very classic opening for a French versus English game. This is exactly the type of approach that players have been taking ever since the release of the game. It's going to be interesting which of these two players will deviate from it first, whether that's through a second town center, whether that's through kind of falling back into their base a little bit more, thinking about the Castle Age.
And the
I don't think either of
Goldvilles
them...
have
Ooh, that's a good pick.
two Vills both get picked off on the gold mine. Such a good job by ZertoN. Circling around with these knights. Anotand moves forward with his little bit of a mass to try to cause some annoyance, try to cause some pressure. And ZertoN already has pulled back away from the gold as well.
Yeah, and if you look at Anotand, it gets worse than that. It's not just the fact that you just lost 2 villagers. You've done so when your opponent has a faster working town center, and you possibly had some TC idle time as well. You're down 5 villagers at minute 7 after only losing 2. I feel like there might have been some TC idle time here as well for Anotand, and it's getting alarming that he's down by essentially 5.5 villagers.
Yeah, there was that little bit of time where he was housed and maybe added on a little bit more here, but this could all turn around if he were able to pick up these knights. That being said, doesn't look like he is able to do so. Still no stone being taken. ZertoN moved back over to that gold vein as well after Anotand pulled his military mass back.
And now ZertoN is starting to add the archers. This is where it gets hard for the English. You need to build a force that you strike the enemy base with. But he's going to be a little bit slower doing so because he's taken a beating to his eco. And if ZertoN can just hold this army off with archers back at home, ZertoN can afford to stay out there on the field with the knights. He doesn't have to pull them back for defense. And once that's a thing, he can continue to raid while also holding off the enemies with the archers.
Yeah, and he's able to slowly poke and prod at some of these other units coming out. Yeah, there might be a spear, but when you have 4 knights against a spear, that's fine. Anotand, though, finding some good damage here on the wood line that was very far out and able to equalize a couple of those Vill kills on the other side, but not able to get any of the knights near his home base.
Yeah, that's beautiful picks there by Anotand. Managed to get 3. Making the villager deficit only be just 4. But behind this, we have professional scouts from ZertoN, something we haven't yet discussed. So he's going to have a lot of food to work with under that town center. You can see he has 4 scouts. Interesting choice.
Why is he going to the deer when he has pro scouts?
I was about to say that. He's got pro scouts. You could see in a moment. He's going to take down and carry them home. But he opts to go for the second deer patch with the villagers.
Knights still trying to search, trying to take any units that are going to be out and about by themselves, and one of those longbows will get picked off yet again. Anotand just continuing to bleed these units, and another longbow should go down right after that as well. You really have to like mass up a group at home until you have enough to push up and regroup with your army, but Anotand hasn't really been able to do that. Very concerning here for him. Gonna head back towards that wood line, but ZertoN has transitioned to the other.
Yeah, it's so difficult with the English. As you said, you cannot walk across the map with every single individual unit. You have to create smaller groups, but it also means that this opens up windows for ZertoN to overpower because your reinforcements aren't coming in steady, but instead they're coming in batches.
Yep, and ZertoN, the numbers might be in Anotand's favor on the military side at the top, but the value is what tells the true story. Those knights, so much more of an expensive unit. They're so much like scarier, especially when you get this mass up and keep them alive. Chivalry doesn't look like it has come out yet, though, so not able to get those back to full health, but no need as of now. And even still, just another unit or two gets popped, gets taken down, and ZertoN doesn't lose anything for it. Just really, really mechanical and methodical play here.
Yeah, he destroyed 638 resources worth of army, and he only lost 150 value. That's what you would probably see on the KD board as well, but even more so relevant is the stat when it comes to, as we discussed, how much resources worth of value did you kill or lose?
Oh, and again, though, Anotand stepping up, gets 2 more Vil picks throughout all this and slowly trying to equalize this military number. Archers aren't able to pull up, so the military mass isn't all together for ZertoN, but he gets to dictate the fights with the cavalry. Loses 2 knights, though, which is the first big military drop that we saw as well.
That stings. That stings so badly, especially because the chivalry upgrade was just now being finished. And you really feel like if you're ZertoN, as you said, you have to dictate the tempo of the fight. You have to be proactive and aggress the base of Anotand. If you don't, he will have the freedom to focus all his longbows and spearmen towards your base, and you will get pushed off from the berries, the hunt, the woodline. And now, ZertoN is going to have to defend against 16 longbows with just 10 archers. He needs to create a diversion, and he needs to accomplish that with these knights.
This time, Anotand, he has 6 spears in with this mass. Another longbow just out in the middle of nowhere, though. Pushing forward, I'm wondering if he's spotted out the pro scouts yet and really knows that's a thing that's happening. Looks like he is swapping on over for the next woodline again. ZertoN needs to watch out for it. Might need to drop some outposts there or something to protect this on up, or else more Vil kills are about to happen. He's pulling back from the woodline now. He knows it's happening.
Yeah, still, longbow is doing a lot of damage here. And as you said, a couple of towers would have been very helpful. These knights have to retaliate. Not just on the gold mine, but on the lumberjacks now. That's the key. You have to fight this one spearman off and then hit the lumberjacks. You need to slow down the flood of reinforcements for Anotand if you're ZertoN.
Yep. And that's where we've seen this game extend a little bit longer than expected. Nightmass has been able to stay alive and healthy for the most part. Just saw another scout get picked on in, and Anotand just constantly moving back and forth with this mass and just pulling the French move and poking and prodding at these Vils. Looks like he's going to be able to get at least 1 or 2 more here.
ZertoN is struggling to keep up with this, but reinforcements haven't been coming in for a while, and now ZertoN might have enough to take this engagement with.
Spear's not able to be that front line for the longbows. Longbow mass isn't quite there and together. Knights just pull right on back, and Anotand pulls right on back there with it. But, ooh, very, very quick proactive pull there. Knights getting a little bit of damage there, but will take quite a bit of town center fire and might just have a horseman go down for that, which is very happy in ZertoN's eyes. Doesn't even lose the horseman as Anotand jumps on out.
Yeah, this is what ZertoN needs to do. He needs to keep harassing those farmers, harassing the lumberjacks, and make sure that Anotand really doesn't have a good food income. You see at the top of the screen, he has 13 food in the bank right now when making an army that costs so much food with the longbows and the spears.
Oh, that woodline, though, about to get sniped down again. Loses another Vil or 2. Anotand just starts to pull back yet again. Value heavily favoring ZertoN, but Anotand has slowly been able to, eke out some kills here. Knight's able to stay alive and healthy throughout all this. Spearman just providing that force to push the Knights back, but it's going to be all about the longbows versus the archer picks throughout this until the Knights circle back around, and here is the fight that ZertoN wants to take, or so I thought. As the Knights circled, Anotand continues to fall back, and now there are no more spears really left to play. He just throws them in as a sacrifice and pulls his whole longbow mass back.
Oh, things are falling apart for Anotand over there. Beautiful micro by ZertoN to minimize the damage on those knights. They're still heavily battered, but now he's got no spearmen to deal with them. ZertoN is still up by 9 villagers despite losing 4 more than his opponent, and now he's gonna have a window to push this gold mine with.
Anotand at least able to get 1 of those knights, 2 of those knights with that longbow micro, but this is the point where now his whole eco is about to get focused down. Villagers on the woodline getting slaughtered. Knights just choosing to dive this. They're absolutely happy with this fight as there are no spears in sight for Anotand, and Anotand's villager count is falling and falling fast, and so is his eco being completely idled. No military going to be able to come out with this, and I don't see much of an ability to come back from this now, too.
Yeah, lumberjacks have been idled. It's just very difficult to get any of those longbows out, and indeed he knows that ZertoN turning that one decisive fight in the middle of the field into just a gigantic momentum. And that momentum will propel him into the main event of the Elite Classic. 3-0 win over Anotand here. ZertoN is going to be one of the participants of the top 16.